Hi everybody, it's Monday evening, 16th of July, 2018. I just finished writing an article that I'm trying to disseminate through internet, um, through to our representatives and government and whoever I feel might take interest and may see the seriousness of what I'm attempting to underline and point out. And I completed this little writing. I made a picture, and you can find it on Instagram and on Twitter. And my name is the same if you want to find the actual photograph of the article, because as you know, you can't on Twitter or Instagram, you can't really write anything, so I take pictures of these writings and then I post them, and so you can find the document that way. It's called an article on our rights to human communications. To whoever has been exploiting one of the several loophole glitches now discovered in Facebook, which allow members to easily harm other members, not with writing, but by depriving them access to the network with random censoring destructive harm, please stop reporting me and blocking me from connecting with my loved ones and family members, and unexpectedly preventing me from contacting them. I have a serious health condition and other grave health issues, and I have no close friends or family members anywhere near me here in Europe, for which, after being attacked with false reporting and mistaken suspensions 7 times already in 2 years, I have become scared I may end up in the hospital in critical condition, or find myself somehow homeless or helpless someday, and not be able to alert friends and family whose care and help I may suddenly need, and with whom Facebook is today the only means I have to get in touch with. Users of Facebook need to know that anybody can be reported by anyone on something said to somebody else, even in a completely different speaking or group environment, no matter how old that comment is on your timeline, whereby the use of systematic searches reporting another member on things that don't even need to constitute real violent or threatening hostility, a person can have you suspended from Facebook for the simple satisfaction of harming you, or because they became resentfully frustrated by solid arguments you are making regarding, for example, social, civil, or humanitarian causes, and thus want to fascistically shut you up. This is being done a lot right now to many Argentinian civilians in the Malvinas, Falklands argument debate groups by the British side, many of which come from military backgrounds. Therefore, they have a different level of prowess, should we say, simply because they don't want the Argentine to get more people outside the conflict to start understanding better and talking more about the real historical details in the claim Argentina has had during the last 208 years on these islands. So they are taking advantage of the fact that because Facebook is an English speakers communication system in a world of English operating technologies, they can use its functions with much more familiarity, in particular its penalty functions, in corrupt and manipulating ways, achieving suspension after suspension in such a continuously unfair, demoralizing manner that it ends up exhausting non-English native speakers, who besides are not looking to use Facebook to harm others in such elaborate, sneaky ways. I've written Facebook many letters about this in detail, and about other observations I have been carefully analyzing, ultimately for their own benefit. ways in which people behave harmfully and unfairly against one another through Facebook, and which are not about selling our information, a matter which, in my view anyways, should be less of an argument on controlling our data, but rather one more on the inappropriateness and invasive harm which marketing and marketing interests on Facebook and the internet have when they afflict us and usurp our own time and the instruments we purchase. The invasive insolence of today's marketing ethics also makes me think about the right to own and the right to use our own creative material internet companies have bestowed themselves with through the usurping power they have in controlling the use of internet access through those instruments we have purchased, and to the material produced by these instruments. In other words, internet companies, Google, Microsoft, software, companies, basically they're taking our creativity. And then they control it. We make beautiful pictures, we write interesting things, and then they have systems by which it is corralled inside our own computers, because they can this is stuff we all know, users know, and none of us are really raising the alarm on what a ransack of our own property, of our own intellectual property this is becoming. It's unbelievable. So I think government is basically, it's so much, growing so fast and so quickly and so large that they're just touching the tip of the iceberg when you think about it. People are complaining about stuff, and in the end it's like, who cares if they have my data? All I have to do, if they have my credit card number. We're not looking at the more at the deeper aspects of how we're being robbed at other levels of our rights, of our creative production, not just our potential, our development, our education. Everything is being the internet is not being used to educate anybody. The internet is not focusing on a criteria that it needs to be run by. Instead, it's a free-for-all, crazy Wild West in which those who can have more power are doing whatever they want, and it's harming people, and it's not being used for the potential that it actually has. The invasive insolence of today's marketing ethics also makes me think about the right to own and the right to use our own creative material internet companies have bestowed themselves with through the usurping power they have in controlling the use of internet access through those instruments we have purchased and the material produced by these instruments, to the point of blocking them until you comply with their usage of them, of our instruments, of our laptops, until we comply with how they want us to use our own computers. They do this stuff where and another thing I just want to throw in here, I don't want to make this too long, but it just makes me laugh, because you can see the human detachment of the whole industry of software designers in the simple example of expecting us to remember different passwords for all the different different types of passwords, lowercase, uppercase, number, symbols, and all the loops and hoops that you have to go through in order to be verified in case you type the wrong one. And what are we supposed to go around with a little book that we write down each password? And so we're supposed to organize our lives administratively between cell phone companies and computer companies and websites. We're supposed to be basically one big in these scarce 24 hours the living um, minus 8, 16 hours of life enjoyment. We're supposed to, out of those 16 hours, dedicate our brain, our organizing, our meticulousness, our applied responsibility to running all these instruments, all these softwares, getting into these sites, knowing when the discount comes for one of our cell phone companies, and knowing when to, it's crazy. We're becoming like hamsters. We're working for them to make money, basically. We're working for these companies because, and not only we're working for them, but we're working for their inefficiencies. They're very loosely, unintelligently, unpractically thought out systems of control, of administration. We have to, on top of it, run them for them. That's what we're doing. We're running their administrative systems that have the sole purpose of charging us the money that we work for. Okay, and this is happening, and then nobody. Okay, this may seem a little out there, but it has examples that are right there at our fingertips. When somebody at Google or wherever says, okay, how are we going to make sure that it's them, and that what kind of password are we going to require? Are they not thinking how much time does this person have in their day to actually remember these things? They don't think about the human reality of the person they're expecting so much of. It's unbelievable what the world where it's at right now. It's like a dark age of unseen and invisible dark ages of human arrogant, technologically advanced expectation and ignorance, and social ignorance, because we're becoming dumber about the natural physiological story of what we are as beings, as a species, and we're inventing society with idealisms that as if our days had 40 hours, 400 hours to live by, and 20 hours to sleep by, and we had all this excess time. The lack of appreciation for the fleeting 70 years of life, of youthful, alert life that we may have, is so unbelievably inconsiderate of the human condition. And we must be so proud of our little inventions that we can't be bothered in thinking how it affects other people that are just like us. All right, let me finish this. I wasn't supposed to do those detours. Civil communication costs them. Okay. Inappropriateness harmed by which invasive insolence of today's marketing ethics, of controlling access instruments we have purchased, and to the material produced by these instruments, to the point of blocking them until we comply with their usage of our instruments. Such topics summarized in the right for communication to be owned and dominated by the communicator, the principal. Such topics summarized, I forgot the word principle. I can't believe I printed this and left the word principle out. Such topics summarized in the principle of the right for communication to be owned and dominated by the communicator. It's a very simple principle. Our voice is a result of our intelligence and our thinking. It's how we recognize we're cognitive. We know each other, and our voice, our eyesight, our language. It could not be more ours than anything else. It's like saying we're going to allow you to hear some things and not hear others. Our language and our speaking is our right. The right of communication to be owned and dominated by the communicator. That's a principle. When when we're putting things on the internet, we're writing things, we're making statements, or we're making a video. It's like we're speaking to another person. We are speaking to another person. You can't do anything that makes any sense, any purposeful and truthful explanations for its occurrence with our voice and our speaking that is not about directing it to another person. You can't separate speech. You can't say, okay, he's speaking, but the worth or the value or the reason or the purpose of that speaking is not that another person hears it, another human being hears it, it's something else. No, it's like saying our skin is to protect us from the environment. It's not also to make, shoes or whatever. That's what it's for. We may make shoes with the skins of animals, but that's just a brutality that is a whole other subject right there. We can't separate the reason and the purpose creation made, the elements of creation. And so voice is for another person and the person who emits it and the receptor. It's not for somebody to step in the middle and say, okay, now what you're saying, although it's meant for another human being, we're going to have it. You did not mean it for somebody else. We decide you meant it maybe for us, and we're just going to assume that, and so sorry, it's ours now. Videos and what we write are the same. Somebody else cannot decide who that speaking, who that writing belongs to, and that is what is happening right now. They're taking stuff that we write, videos that we make, and they're deciding, well, maybe you won't be able to access it anymore. Maybe we'll tell you when to see it, when not to see it. Whoever produces it. When Facebook switches randomly, somebody says, okay, I want all my friends to see this video, this picture I took of my family, of my kids. I want all my family and all my friends to see the pictures of my kids, right? And now they have this logarithm where if you refresh your screen, you may not see what you accidentally just refreshed and were reading right before. You'll be shown something else. It mixes everything, it shuffles everything, and you see something else. Another glitch. These glitches just tell you how detached, how out there they are. Don't they imagine what somebody else, their emotions, their engagement is feeling, is experiencing in that moment, that they would just say, oh, okay, well, that might be something interesting that they were reading, but now they can't find it anymore because we shuffled it up for whatever reason we think is more important. It just shows you these glitches speak of how, just anyways. So the right of communication to be owned and dominated by the communicator must stand and be the real argument on the table before they even say, well, you weren't supposed to give my credit card number to somebody else. They have not only never replied, because I wrote Facebook a bunch of times. I explained to them something really advanced about how in groups that are created for social, political, heated matters, sovereignty discussions and arguments about political sovereignty issues, you have a different kind of condition where if you have military personnel, people who have given their life to the Queen or whatever, they think that if they don't defend England, God forbid, what's going to happen? If they don't step on everything else before they defend and just blindly say that they're right without even thinking about what they're saying, all hell will break loose, right? The military mind of like the male mentality of that is geared to want to confront and fight, and so it becomes about the fight, it becomes about winning the fight, kind of human dynamic gets unleashed in these groups, in confrontation, in contrast to guys and girls that just got home from work and they really like politics or they really care about what happened on the islands, and so they, hey, you know what, we have an idea of peace. Maybe we could actually split these islands. Maybe we could do something that's like something that's between the two of us, between England and Argentina. We we create a nation and we work at it together, and then the Argentinians have as equal access to citizenship and living on the islands as the British do. But it's really, the islands are for the islanders, and so what Argentina would be doing is building they're helping them build their own nation, kind of thing, with their own culture, with their own people. And so it would satisfy the the offense. It would heal the offense. It would satisfy the scorn of a country just stepping on you because they're more powerful, and we're not gonna do this diplomatically. We're just gonna have the islands. And at the same time, it wouldn't be anybody taking the islands from the islanders. It would still be for the islanders' future, and so it would kill both birds in one stone. It's a great solution, but it's a solution that would only come from the minds of civilians, of people that think politics can be something interesting and fun and different and radical and new and futuristic and visionary. It wouldn't come from the mind of a soldier, right? So I was explaining this to Facebook. I wrote something explaining this, saying this is what's happening. These people are crazy. They bully us. They do mean things like what I'm writing about. They have they just fight and they insult and offend, and they're weird. They have this win kill kill kind of approach to a group that's a social network group. And so I wrote to Facebook about noting that there's a situation that if you have a civil environment, even though it's about politics, but it brings together military personnel, soldiers, and people who are militant, who feel that they're still in fighting World War II, and they can't let the Argentinians come up for air. They have to quash them, stomp on them, and I was just witnessing this for years, 5 years, 6 years now that I've been in these groups, and so I said, would not that be something to observe? What kind of people, if you're going to have a political, which is a great opportunity for the world to have places in which civilians can go, well, let's see, how can we fix this? How can we fix the situation in Cyprus? Why don't we do this? We love the Turks, and no, we love you. Oh, you loved us too, and yeah, we always loved you, but why did you have to do this and say the Turks to the Greeks, and before you know it, or the Jews and the Palestinians, they're talking like people, like friends, and they're saying, why don't we do this? And so Facebook and the internet could be great venues for this kind of fresh, visionary, different, new, radical proposals that politicians are just too blocked up, too choked up in all the forces surrounding them and the protocols, and they're all stiff and they can't say things without 100,000 people coming down on them. And so Facebook would be a great venue to resolve political problems. And so this is in the spirit that I was writing. I wrote Facebook about this, and I said, hey, maybe you should consider seeing what's happening in these groups. They're not about, they're not gossip type social network groups. They're serious. People put a lot of emotion and passion and patriotism, and they get as crazy too. And so it's a shame. Why don't you go take a look, see what's happening in these groups? They never answered. They never responded. They don't, I think they're actually playing games with me, and I'm going to say something about that now. Whoever works in whatever office, monitoring, suspension office, and whoever, I can just smell like the human hand, alone in a room there having, nobody's going to know what I'm doing with this guy, whatever. But anyways, Um, so, fascist. Okay, where did I go here? Notions of foreign thinking onto the public. Okay. They have not replied, I said, but they appear to be making fun of me by instead showing me another comment after they suspended me. They show me, you know how when they suspend you, you can only see what is happening, but you can't like or comment anything. It's like torture, it's like, and you know what they do? During the suspension, they send you, this is what you're missing, and they're showing you, they send you pictures of the stuff that you posted in the past, like 3 or 4 years ago. Your memories. Now, one time they did that, the next day, and a third day, they kept showing me this, like, suggestion kind of things they do on Facebook, and so memories, blast of the past, 3 times in a row. Is it not obvious that somebody who's suspended, they're showing this to some now? Is it malicious, or is it a way of saying, if somebody believes? They're so into controlling. This is a problem with humanity. The more we want to control, the less we make worthy the significance of other people. The great problem with humanity is domination, and one of the great problems is control and domination, because everybody wants to be, and everybody wants to give and stand and share and have equal significance in their thinking and their rationale and the giving of their intelligence. So when you want to control and you say, no, this is how you're going to do it, you're telling somebody, no, you're not worthy, you don't need to think about this, you don't need to give, you don't need to resolve it, we don't need to listen to you. Now, there's a certain amount of this that is part of how society gels. There's an amount of leadership, and there's an amount of fellowship. But it is not identified as one of the things that we need to look out for, because it's one of the prices we pay. To control and to dominate others instantly taxes us with a price. And are we even aware of that? Some people would just dominate and control others to eternum, and they don't realize that instantly you're telling somebody you're worth just an infinite amount less right now, because I'm telling you what to do, what to say, what you can, what you can't do. These people are just out of control. It's all about dominating, controlling, dominating, and managing users. They're just completely obsessed with judging and morally saying, thinking about what it means, what the thing. They've given control. They've made a mess, but I don't want to get into criticizing how badly Facebook is engineered and designed right now. I just want to finish this paper. Going on 27 minutes here. Must be unreal arguments. So they show. Okay, so getting suspended. Comment already supposedly have not only replied, worded on the things to be Facebook not informing any. Okay. Comment I supposedly made suspicious. Okay, they have not only never replied, but they appear to be making fun of me by instead showing me another comment I supposedly made, suspiciously selected for its wordage, for which also I'm getting suspended. Just wait. There's another reason why we suspended you. You can't feedback, but let me tell you what else supposedly somebody else turned in, and it's usually 3. Nobody's choosing, nobody's counting, right? It wasn't one time. I've been suspended like 7 times if you count maybe another couple of times before, but in the last 2 years it's been 7 times. And it's never been like, okay, we're going to show you another reason that you were suspended for. Then all of a sudden when they started doing that, they showed you 3 reasons for which you're suspended. While you're suspended. I mean, you can just see every time a human being decides something, and they just have no idea how they're affecting people. I think that by Facebook not informing anyone you have been suspended and not telling you who reported you, they can easily create a decoy facade. Conceivably. while working with agencies behind the scenes, such as British intelligence or the Foreign Office. That is one way in which the Foreign Office or British intelligence, if they had a plan, to keep Argentinians who are so communicative, and it's an intelligent culture that knows a lot about polemicizing, that can think a lot about polemicizing history, and they really are. The British are so into controlling media, and what is said, and the wordage and the semantics of every word that is said, and what it's going to produce and what it's going to cause if you say it that way, versus much more than we are. If you look at the American news, American headlines, and the language that we use, that's not, we don't think about it. We probably copy what another newspaper said, or we don't think about it. When you look at how the British select how they're going to write something, it's incredible. You can see where they're going with it, what they want to achieve. Decoy facade work. So potentially that is possible, and we know this happens in the world. All countries have covert operations and stuff that we hear about 30 years later, when everybody was killed or whatever already. And so we may find out one day a lot of stuff about the Falklands-Malvinas War that nobody has ever talked about yet. And was it really so unexpected by Britain and the United States? And was it the fact that it was kind of foreseen, not at that moment, it didn't actually catch anybody by surprise, but it said, okay, quickly, you know how we can use this, what we can do, this is what's going to happen, this is what we're going to do afterwards, and this is the opportunity that we have to do da-da-da-da-da. All this stuff usually doesn't make it to the public knowledge for 30, 40 years, and by then, the horrible part of people that are intelligent enough or well read enough, which is not me, but it's like I know about them, or I know about that world, is that they see things like this actually maybe being the case, or they can almost verify that that's exactly what happens, but they're in silence. Nobody sees them, nobody hears them, they have nobody to talk to because nobody will believe them, and then in 40 years they're gone. Okay, I'm just going to finish this because it's taking way too long. Have only never replied. They have not only never replied, but they decoy facade behind which they. In this case, for example, I made the example of the Foreign Office or the British intelligence hiding behind such a decoy facade created by the supposed reporting, a reprimand system of Facebook, making it look like some people are reporting you or using the reporting done by other people to have other agendas accomplished. We simply don't know. And that's what they want, not to be accountable. Keep in mind, while we are entertained and distracted with the conversation about reprimanding the behavior of members who get out of line, who say things that constitute whatever social egregious type of behavior, the most decisively significant or important aspect of social manipulation is to censor and not let selected ideas, notions, or forms of thinking out into the public. And that's how history has always proven itself to ultimately oppress people, by shutting them up. And so this silencing, while we're on Facebook thinking it's all about, these other problems related to social network, it totally blows right past us. It flies right past our attention that behind such a failing system in which people, it's as if they have logarithms that do it automatically, so people report you and it's logarithms that this, they're doing this. It's almost like, how can you not think that they're making a huge explanation to not have to explain so that they can hide something behind it? How can you not think that? The most decisively significant okay. In thinking about this insidious way of cheating and the unsuspecting and the less able, one can only deduce how similarly spirited and engaged Britain's claim of having more right to the Malvinas Falkland Islands is than Argentina's 208-year-old claim to this once held Spanish territory. So here I'm kind of nailing it by saying if they cheat and they cheat so badly and they manipulate it and they hide and there's all these potential for conspiracy, and you see that the ingredients are there even though you can't verify them, how can you not think that they're actually not righteous at all, and that the whole thing is about bullying Argentina because they're more powerful, even though there are several questions as to the validity of a colonial claim being more significant or important to politics or to the world than a country saying, oh wait, we're building nationhood. This was Spanish, and we have a right then to make extend our home to include that. We don't want it as a colony. We want to have it part of our nation. And so that's a political concept, a founding principle of sovereignty that would confront and would contest the right of saying, well, we want to have that land just in case we want to repair our ships or have a naval base. Who knows? We think we can go around the world and drop little flags anywhere we feel it should be ours, regardless of the rest of the population of the planet and their right to have land. And so there's an argument there to be had, regardless of the fact that the Spanish and the British and the Dutch and the French were all on the Falklands 100 years before the Argentinians. The Argentinians came into where the Spanish were receding. So they were leaving. Ultimately they had the largest or the loudest or the most apparent or obvious or whatever, even though the British argued it and said that they were, they have all these names, and we had Mr. Falkland sail through there too. Well, this, you have to put yourselves in the reality of the day, and that whole part of the world, South America, the English were, besides was Spanish, the English were always following behind the Spanish. At first, the Spanish they even saw Hawaii before the British did, but they said, we're doing something else in the Philippines. And so what was happening? These sailors were getting maps and information from other sailors, and so then they would take it, Queen, oh Queen, oh Queen, such and such conquistador or such and such sailor has the maps too, or they say it appears that the Spanish have found, and so they go get it before they, that's how it was actually happening. And so the British like to say, stop the people now. The British are the people that now to say things that are so superficial, so nothing, compared to actually being in the emotion of the real living of that time of history. And that time of history, the British apparently, and what gives it away is that the British were basically kicked out by the Spanish when they tried to also put their settlement on the islands. They both put it on the same time, because it wasn't the British to go say, we're going to get off our islands. It was the Spanish that told them, get off our islands, and they did. So the Spanish had more control in that area, and the Argentinians, when they won independence from the Spanish, they said, okay, Puerto Soledad, Puerto Luis is now Puerto Soledad, and but then the English thought, hey, look, the Spanish are no longer there. The Argentinians, what a joke! They can't even, they wouldn't even fire a slingshot against us. Let's take him now. And the Argentinians had also been attacked by the Silas Duncan on the Lexington, an American that wanted to have free dibs and just go hunt seals and nobody tell them what to do or when. And the Argentinians wanted to organize. They wanted to have law, and they acted a little too tough with some American whalers, and the Americans just went back there and razed the place to the ground. And so when the place was destroyed, the English said, "Now we can go and like vultures, now we can go and take it from them." If you look at the value and principle level of this conflict, it's shameful for Britain. It's like always taking advantage of the struggling country trying to get up. As soon as it's trying to get up, it's like there is no such regard, and they say there's no such regard in world history, but actually all we do is write about human values, and in hindsight, like I was saying, in hindsight, then we start writing about the real human explanation when it's too late. But the real motivating factors in why we do things and then explain by writing what they're about are based on what motivates us as human beings. So first, it's the British seeing that the Argentinians could not defend themselves, even though it seems like they had a good case for making the islands part of Argentina, but they can't defend themselves, and they're getting sick, and they have too many problems and fighting too many wars. They're exhausted from all the other wars of independence and forming their nation. We can just go and take them like taking candy from a baby. And then when you make it official, how do you write it? That's not what you write, right? And then what people talk about is what officially was written. So the emotional, motivating aspect of history and politics is actually the most important, is the source, is why we do things. And often, like in this case, not the level that the British, in this case, want to talk about it. And so that's why these and that's why these groups get so crazy, because the Argentines are more comfortable. They actually didn't do anything wrong. The British want to make him out to be the ones that are wrong, taking the islands from the poor islanders, and they want to create this story that is emotionally the story that is where the Argentinians are wrong. But the truthful emotional story is where the British are taking advantage of the Argentinians, and they're always abusing with their power, which is taking advantage. They have a war, and so what do? Now they take advantage of the war to make peace agreements where they control and clamp on the Argentinians in the military capacity, when the Argentinians weren't even wanting to war. They never wanted to. They didn't. It was just the junta's crazy thing, and the people didn't want that. They saw the British as their friends, as their cousins, as the part of the source of their own culture, and they admired the British. And so as soon as the war was over, the junta was removed. The last thing from the minds of the Argentinians, they were kind of ashamed. They were kind of embarrassed that they had a war with Britain. But the humanity on behalf of the British was simply not there. They all of a sudden started really seeing this logistically. And so instead of saying, the most important thing now is to have the islanders and the Argentinians be friends, forgive the war. It was the juntas, and we had a big part in putting in encouraging the junta to be there, because they were fighting Russian subversives and backed socialist guerrilla warfare going on in South America and stuff. And so let's be accountable too, and just do the right thing and make these people be friends again. No, they saw that now that the Falklanders are afraid, or they were impacted, they were traumatized, and all of a sudden they were waving little British flags, and they were saying, we are British. Oh well, what a perfect time to be totally welcomed, open arms, and put our military base there, even though the Argentinians were not presenting a threat. They actually didn't. It was the junta that invaded. The Argentine constitutional nation never had any belligerent, militant, military attitude, stance, posturing of any kind about this conflict. It was just something that the kids knew about in school that nobody talked about because, in the end, the islands were held by the British, so nobody really was crazy about talking about it. But it was a passive thing, and so the whole thing is so aberracious. The idea of the war is weird. It's like cousins having sex, and they're not supposed to. What, Argentina and Britain fighting? That's crazy. That's like saying, Belgium and France going to war. Why? They're like cousin countries. They're stupid. One admires the other. They're in each other's business. They've been doing business together. Everybody was shocked. I remember everybody was shocked when that war occurred. Nobody could believe it. What? Argentina with Britain? A nuclear power? Do they even have an army in Argentina? It was like, what the hell? And this is not just some flimsy remark. This is actually an expression, a manifestation of the true condition and what it was describing, that nobody wanted. The truth was not speaking. That truth was not speaking. That there was an opportunity for Britain to NATO or America or whatever really was going. The real details was offering to what eventually was demonstrated. The base was brought there, a full military base with the Falklanders saying, "Oh, we're British and we're British and we're British," and the Argentinians weren't they were preoccupied, completely humiliating their police and their military and getting rid of all authority, and they didn't care to have an army, and they were coming from even during the junta's crazed attack on the islands. Their culture, their society was in this lagging 70s, peaceful, innocent kind of jean-wearing flower, young couples, go to school and honor your parents kind of society. That's the furthest thing from the Argentinian mind. But the British don't want to say that. They don't want to say that truth. They want to say, you made Argentina warred on Britain, warred on the islands, and why were they all cheering outside the Plaza de Mayo if they didn't really want to have hate towards the island? They need this, because if a country has the opposite, or the confronting country be the aggressor, then they are absolved from their own aggressiveness and their own vile doings. You have to justify war, but I'm changing the subject again. I just have to finish doing this. Okay. And needing aspect of social manipulation and censoring is the worst. Is actually the way to manipulate societies, is by shutting them up. In thinking about this insidious way of cheating and usurping the less able, the unsuspecting, one can only deduce how similarly spirited and calibered Britain's claim of having more right to the Malvinas Falkland Islands is than Argentina's 208. I count from 1810. Because there was something that happened in 1810. Some of the patriots were saying, and the Malvinas too, but it didn't get formalized till like 1825 or 27, I think. But you can say that the claim is as old as, if not older, actually, depending on, because people were talking about the islands were already being administrated because of Spain through Buenos Aires, which was like a province of the Spanish Empire. And so already the Argentinians being born in Argentina, although they were still in Virreinato, were already involved with whatever they were doing on the Malvinas, what little was going on regarding the Spanish. So that's why I say 208-year-old, because I just kind of find the year 2010, the Declaration of Independence, and then the creation of the nation is the year 1816. But in 1810 is when they celebrate the more heartfelt kind of, that's when we decided we're going to be a country. That's 1810. The more patriotic date is the 25th of May of 1810, and then the more official Independence Day is the 9th of July of 1816. Okay, final paragraph. I'm sorry, it's 15 minutes. I hope I didn't lose most of you by now. Is this how our governments protect us? Wait until things become so audaciously revealed to the public that worried they will look like they don't care, they finally do something medial and inconclusive about it until the heat blows over. Like what just happened with the Zuckerberg hearing. Like what just happened with the Zuckerberg hearings, hitting only a small portion of the vast and unending harm potential of so much power of communication in the hands of so few. In the hands of so few can have. Oh well, I already published this. Hitting on only a small portion of the vast and unending harm potential of so much power of communication in the hands of so few can have. What is the point of blowing so much hot air on nuclear non-proliferation, pretending we're seeking to end the evil of war, when we'll just blindly allow the evil caused by human nature to continue on unchecked as it finds a different course of action against people anyways? So it's like we want to save humanity from our evil doing. We obsess over a few things that we're still failing at anyways, and it's just like lava. It just falls over all over the place, and then a twice as large amount starts harming and hurting and taking and abusing people, not through a war but through other runaway entire areas of communications in this case, and marketing and hyper-consumerist capitalism. It's all about, like, somehow we've convinced ourselves that things are rude, what ethics and good manners are, but sticking a price tag and saying buying it now or else in front of your face, stopping where you're going to in the middle of the street or while you're typing something that's important is okay. That's acceptable. We can stop you, we can interrupt you, your focus, your creative attention, your project, and run through your computer screen. It started with TV ads. People were getting really into something. Okay, you got to accept the 15 minutes, break up the show in 4 segments of 10-minute long. We got used to that, but now it's just become like you have no say. You're just gonna slap you around up and down, slap you up like the Three Stooges, and just when you started working again, well, now we're gonna make it difficult for you to enter the site again unless it's just, what are we? What do they think? Who do they think they are regarding on the other side of the screen? No, really, what do they think? Who do they think? What do they think is on the other side? Because if it's all about planning, the funny part is that we're planning and drawing, designing, is really important. Architecture for human living, for the quality of space, for making better shared spaces among family and society, feeling better about life, about day. No, that's getting neglected. Architecture is becoming secondary to construction and prefabricated stuff. Construction industry and prefabricated stuff. But apparently designing where it's easy, in other words, telling somebody unless they fill out all these forms, they can't do important things to life, is easy. So wherever design can fail most easily seems to be where it is growing. And considering that designing is the vehicle through which to heal and save civilization, because everything is designed, Everything is designed. It is shockingly amazing that we don't stress and try to give design more importance in the places where it will save and heal and better the problems that we have. And I guess we don't realize just how important it is, but because we don't realize how important design is, we have places where it is easy, or where we don't realize how much we're affecting people by how we design things, to be completely out of control, careening into oblivion. Okay. Unit things given to just reveal, like just happened with Zuckerberg hearings. What is the point of blowing so much hot air on nuclear non-proliferation when we're seeking to end pretending we're seeking to end the evil of war, when we'll just blindly allow the evil caused by human nature to continue on unchecked as it finds a different course of action against people anyways. Perhaps it's time we raise the stakes on the accusation of fake news, which in the end is nothing but immature, non-objective, superficial, childishly selfish news, and start talking about face politics. Okay, thanks for hanging in there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it to be almost an hour. This was supposed to only take 10 minutes, but now it's become one of my exceedingly, excessively long videos. Have a good night. Arrivederci tutti from beautiful central Italy.